Welcome to Sober Shenanigans. Real talk and real recovery, sharing stories, old and new, trying to stay on the right path and help others just like you. So feel our flow and get on with the show. Here's your hosts, Stoff and Primo.
Primo's always going to be my grand sponsor.
I told him, there's no getting away from me, dude. You can get away from Dennis, but,
Exactly.
I get that designation.
Anything that makes Primo sound old, I'm down for. Something with the word grand in front of it is awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Granny. Fuck.
All right. Well, hey, listen. This is another episode of Sober Shenanigans, real talk and real recovery. How you feeling today, Primo?
Pretty goddamn good. Like Tony the Tiger.
Like Tony the Tiger? You're great. I love it. I love it. Today, we've got Tyler and Ryan with us, two guys that have been sober for quite some time and some sponsees of Primo's grand sponsee and what like it. How you guys doing today?
Pretty good. Happy to be here.
Nice.
Yes.
Very good. Blessed. Super thankful. Primo asked us to do this. Super excited.
I'm hoping, there's going to be some atomic wedgies. There's going to be some headlocks. There's going to be some discussions about what you're doing. I know, but am super proud of both you guys, but I always, there's something about when I see you guys, I just have to, I got to quiz you on what the hell is going on.
Exactly.
Love it, though.
Now, I heard that you guys have been friends a long time. Would one of you like to talk about how long you've been friends and maybe something of that nature?
Yeah, so me and Tyler grew up in Dunedin, and we lived in the neighborhood next to each other. So we were in the same kindergarten class. So we've known each other quite some time now, and we went to all the same schools, middle school, high school, and we've been to some of the same facilities here in Pinellas and throughout, Department of Corrections, unfortunately.
Jails, institutions, and death.
Oh,
Wow.
Literally, it happened.
They jump-started both you guys? Brought you back?
I don't know about Ryan, but I've been jump-started at least once.
Sweet.
Unfortunately.
Wow.
That's when you know you're living. You know what I mean?
How old were you?
You damn sure knew you were living when you came back after the jump start.
That's how that works.
Very uncomfortable.
How old were you when that happened?
30.
Yeah.
30.
So you'd been going hard for a while. You guys probably started in your teens like everybody else when it came to experimenting and stuff?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's interesting with us. I have an older brother that's 2 years older. He has an older sister that's 2 years older. And my brother and his sister were in the same classes growing up, and me and Tyler were in the same classes growing up. And I always wanted to fit in with my brother's friends, so I kind of tried to hang out with my brother's friends, and really more so the deviant friends, the guys that were partying and drinking and smoking. My brother didn't really do very much of that, but I got in with those guys back in the day, and then I was kind of the guy in our friend circle that was showing my friends what this was all about, unfortunately, and got a lot of my friends into drinking and doing drugs.
So you turned Tyler out. You
always the guy with the older
drug
brother.
Trafficked Tyler into this world.
I wouldn't put it like that. I wasn't a very good influence on Tyler.
So what was it? What was the first thing you got high on? What was it?
Well,
was it Scotch guard?
Rewinding a little bit to what Ryan said, hanging out with some of the older crowd mixed in with our age group. I recall being very uncomfortable when I found out about these substances coming into play. So I was always the guy that was kind of back on the sidelines a little bit. And, eventually I tried it a couple times. We're talking about weed here.
Oh,
initially.
okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then
We like details.
yeah, I don't. If you want some backstory on how we got that, we could get into that later. But it's funny. At least my memories are.
How old were you guys? Ryan, come on, give it up.
I was probably maybe 15.
15.
I think he was younger than that.
Maybe
'cause
14 initially.
Yeah.
Running around the neighborhood with this sketchy ass group of juvenile delinquents.
It's my crew, man. That's my crew.
Yeah, and I'm just like on the sidelines, and then try it out a couple times, and I'll never forget. I think
I remember
Can I finish?
Yeah.
No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
No, you're good.
No, the first wave of mood or mind altering anything really kicked in was in East Lake Woodlands, right by AMC 20, and Ryan's wearing some sailor's cap for some reason, stoned out of his mind, roaming around the AMC 20 plaza, and we're at the baseball fields right back there, and all of a sudden, maybe a homemade water bong was involved, Propel bottle. And, all of a sudden we're walking back to the movie theater, and I'm just like, where the fuck is Ryan? Like, I literally got hit with the wave, and I find him. He's like in the bushes. I think he's taking a piss or something. And why are you laughing? And all of a sudden I was super uncomfortable still. And then it wasn't until maybe an hour later, after laying out on the golf course green behind his mom's house, staring up at the sky, that it finally calmed down. And I'm like, this isn't so bad after all.
Sounds great.
I keep thinking he's going on a 3-hour tour when I think of the sailor cap.
Yeah.
Ryan's playing,
it definitely
he's
was.
playing Gilligan on an East Lake back there.
It was at least a 3-hour tour.
Did that work? I mean, it sounds cool, but was that your game?
I have no idea what I was doing with a sailor cap or why I was wearing one, how I got one. That is funny that he brings that up.
Village people.
Long John Silver's used to be in that plaza. Maybe you guys went by there.
I remember that. Yeah. No, I don't think so.
Wasn't it Long John, Taco Bell, and something else?
Pizza Hut eventually.
The trio.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that area very well. I still live there.
Yeah.
I was at that movie theater last weekend.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's a lot of place to roam back there in East Lake Woodlands and in that area.
Neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, and running across Tampa Road late at night while you're impaired is also a whole nother scene.
I wouldn't advise it.
No. That's what happened, though.
We do a lot of things not advised back in those days.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty amazing you guys haven't been eaten by alligators over there in Dunedin.
Exactly.
Running around the golf course like that, high as a kite.
Speaking of golf course, one of our first jobs together was actually at Dunedin Country Club. Tyler helped me get the job there.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know how long we worked there. I think mine was like a summer. I think you worked there quite a bit longer than I did.
So are you guys?
Yeah.
You guys are best friends then. Obviously, you have to be besties. I always see you guys together. Yeah.
We went through phases where, it got to the point where I was like, Ryan's off doing his own thing. And part of that was like the separation there, I guess you could say, was the institutions, jails.
That helps, yeah.
And honestly, if it wasn't for that phase, there's a very good chance I wouldn't be here, because I feel like that stalled the extremes, so to speak, with addiction. Even though it continued while incarcerated, it's obviously limited and not as readily available there.
The toilet wine and spice.
Yeah, and Suboxone.
Yeah.
Wow.
Those were the big things, the spice and the Suboxone, or Tucci, as a lot of people call it now.
Nice. Was there a time when you knew that you had a problem and probably needed to get some help, either one of you, before you got sober? That was there something that happened that you're like, this is it. This is my last round with this stuff. Was there anything in particular?
I'll let Ryan go first on that.
I mean, I think from the very get-go, my drinking and substance abuse was too much. I wasn't a guy that was just going to have a couple drinks or whatnot. It was like right from the get-go, I have a mission. If I'm going to start drinking, I'm drinking to get screwed up. For some reason, it was just always like that from the get-go. I'm not sure exactly why, but I was always that guy that just drank too much, is throwing up, causing a disturbance at the party or doing something stupid. Pretty sure Tyler has plenty of stories about me doing stupid stuff.
Yeah, well, once it really set in for me, it was like kind of like Ryan said. There's always a solid destination behind the using or drinking, and that was to get the effects as quickly as possible. And for me at least, when it came to the, was there ever a point where I'm like, I have a problem?
Yeah.
I don't think there was ever like that moment where I'm like, damn, I'm fucked up. Like, I need help. But I remember once sitting with a bottle of oxycodone, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, I can't believe this is a prescription drug. I'm like, I can't believe, like what it's doing in my life right now. But, I still justified everything and was like, I can control this, or I can manage it, or I can wean myself off, and might have had a plan. And, it lasted all of maybe 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't think there was ever a moment where I'm like, damn, I need help. I need to get sober. It was when I was looking at a third prison sentence, and the one right decision I may have made before I got sober was, I'm going to, instead of turning myself into the county jail on these 4 active warrants, I'm going to go to detox first. And I did. And, never was I thinking, I need to, I want to be sober. I need to be sober. It wasn't until I had a God moment in there. One of the therapists was like, hey, what's your plans? And I'm like, oh, maybe, more AA, more NA meetings. No plan, really, just saying what they want to hear. And then she's like, I want to recommend this place to you in Tampa called Turning Point. She's like, you should call your insurance and see what benefits, you'll have when it comes to treatment. And I was reluctant. And then she's like, what's the worst that could happen? I felt like shit. I was detoxing.
Yeah.
But anyways, I called. That's one of the first suggestions I took. And someone in India answers the phone with my insurance company. That's a choppy line. I can hardly hear him, the accent. And I'm asking him these questions. And the first thing I hear him say is, treatment centers that they'll cover is Turning Point. And that's where, like, I basically gave up the fight.
That's where you gave it up?
Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? That's crazy.
Was that the God moment? Was the
that,
fact that
that was the God moment.
Yeah.
And then the suggestions, I took the suggestions from there.
Yeah.
Long story short, sorry for being long-winded. I never ended up having to step foot inside the jail. They did. Down the road, I did end up having to get a bondsman and go to the jail and get fingerprinted and whatnot when they decided to reactivate these warrants. But never had to step in, never had to do any more time, even though I was looking at another 45 months.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
Yikes.
After doing 5 mandatory, and then prior to that, 4.
Wow.
So you did
Department of
9
Corrections.
years?
Yeah.
Wow.
5 of it was mandatory, which is to the door. 4 of it was after county jail credit. It was ended up being like just over 3 years solid. So total of over 8 years solid.
Wow.
Which is why you are one of my favorite stories. because your
It's
life,
wild. Who would have thought?
but your life is so good. And I know that I could always see Ryan lighting up when he saw you and you guys were hanging out again. And it's like that whole friendship came back.
Yeah,
and you could just see it, man. It was cool to watch. But I mean, I just remember as I got to know you, because you're like this really big guy that's kind of quiet, and and as I got to know you, man, it was like, wow, this is quite a journey.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention was Ryan, while I was finishing up my last sentence, Ryan, our moms would talk back and forth, and I'd get a report from my mom, oh, Ryan's back in jail again, and, whatever. I'd try to write Ryan a letter that I'd never hear back from, because by the time it got to his mom's house or wherever the hell he was back in jail.
Yeah.
And so the time came where it was like, oh, Ryan's doing good. He's got 6 months clean now. And I'm like, this motherfucker. Yeah, right. And then, so anyways, time goes on. I still had a couple years of my sentence. It gets to the point where he actually stayed out of trouble long enough where he could come visit me in prison.
Oh.
And he did. And that was only due to AA. And his recovery, that he was at the point in his life where he was able to do that. And my first day out, he took me to a meeting, and I'm like, okay, this is cool. We're seeing some people we grew up with. And I was like, but I'm still just gonna drink and smoke weed. And literally 6 or 7 days after I got out, I had overdosed.
Wow, blessing.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't stick to alcohol and weed, then, I'm guessing.
No. Yeah, that was one of those master plans,
Yeah.
I think he skipped the alcohol and weed, actually.
You had a reservation.
Yeah, I think. No, there was alcohol first.
Was there?
Yeah.
Man, I guess if I had that much time away, I would have a few plans of what I would do when I first got out.
I was going to say, so Tyler's locked up. So, Ryan, you decided to get sober and get into AA. What brought you into to doing that?
Well, I had been in and out of county jail for, from the time I was 18 to 26. And I always had this idea that I would be, married, graduated from college, and starting a family when I was 27. For some reason, this little
that was your magic number in your head.
Childhood idea. And I was in the county jail for the 10th time and turning 27 in the county jail. And that's, when I got arrested that last time, I went through what it explains in the book, that pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization. I had just gotten out of prison 6 months before this arrest, and I was going back in front of the same judge that sent me to prison, and I was like, this guy is, he's going to send me back up there for 10 years, and my future was super uncertain. And while I was in jail that time, when I turned 27, I had a cellmate that was reading a big book, and I thought it was very odd because you don't normally see that in the county jail, and had about a 30-minute conversation with this guy, and he basically, told me he's not sure how it works, but if I were to get out of here and get into sober living, start going to meetings, do the steps, start praying, that I could stay sober. And it was like the first time in my life that I actually had some hope that I would be able to stay sober when I got out of here. And I ended up doing that. I got sentenced to 9 months in the county jail. I did about 6.5 off of that. And when I got out, I moved to Tampa and made it to this great place, Real Recovery, and started my journey there. And when I got there, they were like, you need to get a sponsor. And I got there on a Wednesday. The meeting that they recommended I go to was on a Friday. When I went to that meeting, I I remember being scared shitless. And there was this guy, he ended up picking up a 1-year medallion. I was like, holy shit, this dude can do it for a whole year.
Yeah.
Maybe if I ask him to sponsor me, you know, he'd be able to show me how to get a whole year. And it ended up being Dennis. And I asked him to be my sponsor.
Did I give him his medallion?
I don't remember.
God damn. I feel bad about that. I think I missed it.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. But anyways, you know, Friday, I'm picking up 8 years. Dennis is picking
Holy
up 9
shit,
years.
that's crazy.
It's insane how far, you know, we've been able to come from there. Pretty wild.
That's great.
And your lives, man, are just supersonic, awesome lives. Dennis is a great Goat Yoga. Dennis is who we're talking about. We got to be honest here. Who we're talking about, but the trajectory of your guys' life is straight up. You know, from the bottom, and a real bottom. Like a lot of guys hit bottom, but you know, you guys' freedom was gone. Your choice to do and make and do what you want to do on a regular basis was over. Somebody was making all the decisions for you based on your addiction and your disease. Crazy.
I'll beat myself up sometimes too about where I'm at now. And thanks to my sponsor who's sitting close by, he'll put shit into perspective for me real quick. Same with Ryan and other people that I've met in the program.
You can only be grateful. There's no other choice, man. I mean, grape jelly used to be a currency in your life. You know what I mean?
Apple.
Was it
jelly,
apple? Oh,
literally. Every once in a while, you'd get a special blend of grape and apple.
Ooh, the mix. Yeah. See,
That grapple.
God only knows what you were doing with that, but it was money.
Well, so you know how, like in our home group, you'll hear people say, you know, me or you or whoever may be the only big book anyone ever sees.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'd been to meetings before, usually, but prior to getting sober, where I was usually had some type of substance in my body. And I think that kept me from buying into what these people that had sobriety, you know, were saying and talking about. So I wasn't really buying into it. But after Ryan got sober, and, you know, I don't even know if I believed 100% that he was completely sober. But after I saw how his life was changing, looking back, you know, I got to give Ryan some credit because he was the big book that the initial big book that I saw living that came into my life. So it's pretty wild.
There's nothing more powerful than that, I don't think, is seeing it in someone else's life right in front of you.
Oh, this guy would chase everyone down at the meeting and make sure they got a book. I mean, he was the ultimate charismatic greeter / welcome party at Friday nights.
Oh, yeah, for the newcomers.
Oh, yeah. He was on their shit, and he would say, you see this guy over here? He's got 3 years. You see that? Look at him.
Yeah.
Look at him. Look at him. And he would just have this energy about him, man. He was on it. And I was like, and I always just, you know, of course I wondered if he was sober too, but he was, but loved him, man. I was like, that is such an integral part of the energy that was needed for those guys to see that, you know what, man, we're going to go out and live our best life. And that is so critical that people can get to see that.
Yeah, and I had gone to meetings before I got sober. It was mostly like court ordered, or my parents are like, "Hey, you're gonna try this out." It was never my idea, and for some reason, when I went to those meetings, I wasn't. They say you need open-mindedness. I was not open-minded at all.
Yeah.
But it did seem like it was mostly older people and nobody was really having fun there. And in Tampa, when I got sober, I went to a lot of meetings where there was a lot of younger people getting sober and like becoming really successful. And that made all the difference. when I saw that side of it, and helped me, dive into it and actually want to do the steps with my sponsor. And that's where the growth was. I had something happen to me when I did the steps, so much relief coming out of 4 and 5, and then 8 and 9 really kind of sprung me forward, because I made those amends, and that was difficult to do for all the things that I put, my family through, and I didn't want to have to make those amends again. Most of the time when I made amends, I asked, what can I do now to make things right? And they were just like, keep doing what you're doing, stay sober. And that, I didn't want to let them down, and that really helped me stay on this path and continue moving forward.
What's interesting is you're kind of like good at turning people out. You know what I mean? Back when you were a kid, juvenile delinquent, running around, teaching kids how to use a bong.
Yeah,
some of those skills as a leader. You know what I mean? That those leadership skills have definitely carried you into sobriety. You know what I mean? And you've taken that same personality trait, and put them to good use. And I've seen it. And that is I was the guilty member of our neighborhood who's getting kids drunk and high too. So I get it.
So I think it's really rare to have an opportunity like with me and Tyler growing up. I was a bad influence, and then, 20 years down the road, now I have this opportunity to be a good influence and help pull him out of that life is, it's incredible. I always had this idea when I was going to visit him in prison that he would get involved in AA, get a sponsor and start coming to this Friday night meeting, our home group.
Expectation.
Yeah. And it finally, came to fruition. And it's interesting because I was wondering how he would fit in with, my circle of guys and my network, and he fits in perfectly. Everybody loves him. It's incredible.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that is an interesting story, and probably a one-off. As someone who was a bad influence is now a good influence. It's almost like you made a real life amends to him from leading him that way to leading him back, and he got to watch you do it in real life. Like Tyler said, he didn't even really believe you at first, but he had to see it, which is the strongest thing we got going in these meetings and in programs is seeing it. Right, I always say when I first came in, I'm only 2.5 years in, but I came in a lot older than you guys, and seeing it in real life, and then knowing that it's been around for almost 100 years is what allowed me to buy in. Like, if it was full of shit, it would have failed 80 years ago.
Exactly.
So I'm like, well, there must be something to this, right? And I've messed everything else up, so let's try this. Maybe it'll turn my life around and things will be good. And I've been fortunate in the last few years to be that walking big book to some of the guys in my crew that are just like, I don't really tell them, but they can see it. And a couple of them have followed me to meetings. Unfortunately, they haven't stuck. In fact, one of my guys is in the hospital currently. He fell off I had 2 guys fall off real hard this week, unfortunately. Oh, wow. And that's tough. I mean, the crazy thing is they like to say that only a certain percentage it sticks with, and then we always say, well, if it's anonymous, who knows what the percentage is,
right?
But it's a tough thing. Did either one of you guys have an early struggle in sobriety that you can remember that maybe you were at a baseball game and the guys next to you were drinking beer or something like that? Is there something that you can remember that was a tough thing to get past?
Well, I don't know. The first thing that came to mind for me when you mentioned that, a lot of people say all the time early sobriety really sucks. And, for me, I kind of had, everyone probably goes through a pink cloud phase. But, after I went to detox, I'm like, okay, I'm going to jail. I know what the next step is. I know what to expect. I'm familiar with it. And I completely just lost my train of thought. But anyways, going to jail, I'm familiar with that. This whole other process, I'm not familiar with it. But anyways, I took this suggestion, which landed me in treatment, followed by sober living.
Yep.
And I was kind of happy because I thought I was going to jail. Who wouldn't be happy if they end up in a better situation than jail?
I remember that scenario with you, big time.
Yeah, I wasn't really struggling early on. Maybe some idiots in the sober living was a big struggle.
You were working and doing sprinklers or something, right? And you were living in the sober house, real recovery, and you were in that work truck, scraping by, and just getting sober. And I remember, I was like, "Don't get in a relationship." I remember that. I remember.
I was already in one initially.
Yeah, the secret.
Got
the
sober.
Secret love, the Romeo and Juliet. I was trying to get Juliet on the show, but she had an appointment, so we were going to have our first forbidden couple.
Well, okay. Since you went to that,
Getting together early in sobriety, what they say don't do.
Well, Tyler's bigger than me though, so he gets to do sometimes. I just wanted him to get well, but he got really well.
Since you jumped to that topic, So when I went into treatment, I was in if you want to call it a relationship, but as soon as I got sober, I realized that needed to end. It wasn't going to work out. I wasn't in my right mind when it all started. And then it was someone kind of similar to Dennis and Chris who were on here before. But, I wasn't pursuing, it wasn't a rehab romance. Mm-hmm. I wasn't pursuing anybody because I was in a relationship.
They never are.
Right?
Go ahead.
Never are.
Yeah.
So that relationship ended. Towards the end of all that, IOP, whatever, started, catching on to someone a little bit. Long story short, I talked to my sponsor about it, and he's like, well, I'd feel better about it if you were past the fourth step. But, here's the first thing you can say to her is you're in a relationship with these 12 steps right now. And I did that, followed by, anything we do, it needs to go slowly. And then Chris is like, I will tell you that you will gain some experience along the way that you'll be able to share with newcomers or other guys in the program one day as to why dating in your first year is not recommended. And I 100% believed him, and I damn sure got some experience that I can share with a boatload of other guys that have taken the same path, and I have shared it. And I don't know if any of them have listened, but I think there's a few that have taken what I said into consideration.
They never
and
do.
they're probably like, that bastard was right.
Yeah.
He was right. But, we got to work on ourselves early on. That first year is...
But however, you guys are going strong, and his gal is like, she's dynamite.
She's a diehard Detroit, like Chris, so he's in love with her.
Lying. Yeah,
More Detroit.
She's so awesome, but she smacks his ass around, and I love it.
All 5 feet and 2 inches.
Yeah, she's awesome, man. Real firecracker.
Well, that's cool. Do you guys have any early on sponsor stories that you remember? That something maybe Tyler, maybe something Primo said to you, or something Dennis maybe said to you, Ryan, that stuck with you, or they made you do something that was goofy, or anything you guys can think of that might be out of the ordinary?
That relationship tip from Chris was a big highlight for me. But, when it comes to early sobriety, something that stood out was, Chris would always say, and the big book says it too, the day will come where you can go anywhere and do anything. And Chris thought he'd put that to the test early on a freezing cold winter's day by taking us and his, we'll just say some friends to, sober and non-sober friends to Gasparilla.
Oh.
And it was like 38 degrees, blowing strong, weed smoke and alcohol in the air.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Then it ended up being pretty fun, but it was that was like my first where I saw like, damn, we got a couple sober guys, we're having fun watching all the people act like idiots out here. And I was like, damn, maybe one day you can go anywhere and do anything and be sober.
Yeah.
And, especially when you got your crew, that accountability goes a long way. And then for me too, the big part of the miracle was, by working the steps to the best of my ability is, the obsession has 100% been lifted. Just driving on the way here to the studio, I go through so many different areas where I'm like, oh, I did this there. Oh, I know that person lives over there. And, it never once did it cross my mind where a craving didn't pop up, no obsession or euphoric recall. It's wild what happens when you really work the steps to the best of your ability.
I think it's cool that you guys are sober in the areas that you're drinking. I had to do the geographic cure. I had to get the hell out of Dodge because I was triggered a lot. And hats off to you guys. I know it's tough, and even when I go back to the beach, even though it's been destroyed by a hurricane, I'll still see areas that trigger a euphoric recall of an event.
Yeah.
Or a night, or it just they come back.
I get triggered on certain. I can go to Fox Hollow Golf Course and remember going into the bathrooms in between whatever the 8th and the 9th hole.
Oh yeah,
and I just and I can, and my buddy who was always with me, his nickname was Crush. Because he was always crushing up whatever it is, and
it should have been Ryan's nickname.
Just thinking about being on that maintenance program is just grosses me out now to think that I was on that situation of maintaining. To maintain, you had to keep using. Mm-hmm. That's no fun. That's no fun. I don't miss that at all. That's for sure. But so Ryan, when you saw Tyler finally come into the program and get sober, how was that for you?
Well, I mean, I'd been working on this for a couple years trying to get him into AA, and I would go visit him and tell him how much my life has gotten better and how it would be a great idea if he got involved in it. It's interesting because he followed very similar path as I did. He went to the same sober living. How did you get introduced to Chris? That's
this guy right here?
Yeah, your sponsor.
Oh yeah, so I was in Turning Point, and you have to get a sponsor and
I remember this.
10 network guys within your first 10 days. Management ownership's changed. I don't know if they still push it on you like they used to. But anyways, I got Mark A as my sponsor, which
that's right.
Most people know him, and everyone's like, "Oh, we know Mark. He'll be a great sponsor." And I knew Mark from some of the meetings that would come into the treatment center. Long story short, he became my sponsor, and I think we got up to step 3. And Mark and I we don't talk as much as we should, but I'd say we're still pretty close. And anyways, I'm in the final stages of IOP, and there's a therapist filling in for my normal therapist, and she asked, "Who's your sponsor?" Oh, I know Mark. Oh, he doesn't have 2 years yet. They had this dumb requirement that you need 2 years of sobriety. Your sponsor needs 2 years of sobriety. And so there was me and one other guy that had Mark, and we're like, oh, that's some bullshit. And long story short, I had gotten, I think before I even met Chris, I got some phone numbers from Ryan and some other people at the meeting. And we're sitting at Yana before the meeting, and I'm telling Ryan about this, what just happened this week in IOP. And I'm going down the list, and Ryan's like, I think you should call Chris. Chris would be a good sponsor. He's a good dude, whatever. I'd heard about the money machine story, and I was like, oh, money. I love money. I want what he has. No, I'm kidding. But anyways, so we're sitting out in the parking lot. I call Chris. We're sitting in either my truck or Ryan's truck. And Ryan's observing, listening, and like on the fourth or fifth ring, Chris answers, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm in Italy." And you know, it was like 3 a.m, and he was jet lagged. He couldn't fall asleep for some reason after being jet lagged, and you know, we got to talking, and I think he said, "I'll give you a call when I'm back stateside or whatever." And the rest is history, but it just really stuck with me. Like, man, like, this is wild, this program. Like, there's people on vacation. He was scoping out his future wedding spot with Kelly. I think. And he answered the freaking phone, and he became my damn sponsor.
How many years ago was that?
It's wild. That was like 3.5 years ago.
I was going to say, you just celebrated your 3rd anniversary, so it couldn't have been too long ago, right? So
this is true.
3.5 years ago.
So if you know my wife, you have to go to where you're going to get married at. There's the pre-trip, and then the trip, and then there's going to be a post-trip to Italy.
Nice.
Probably 3 trips to just finalize the whole package.
Right.
Just to satisfy.
That's funny.
Well, now I think I have to hear the money machine story.
Oh my God.
What is that?
That's what Chris is
I mean, I
known
know it,
for.
but Ryan might tell it better.
Come on, Ryan.
Well,
Martin usually tells this story, but
Yeah.
It's
So
the-
basically, some of the head guys at our Friday night meeting, they like to go out to eat afterwards sometimes, and you know, these are super successful guys with like 20 plus years, and they like to get together.
Cadillac problems.
Yeah.
This was a Cadillac. I think that's a term that's used, a Cadillac problem.
So they're at this nice restaurant and they're talking, and Chris is like looking at his phone, and all of a sudden he's really upset, and the other guys are like, you know, what's going on? And he's like, I have this parking lot down in Fort Myers, and the money collector machine is completely full right now.
Like, I gotta fucking leave. This is bullshit.
I need to get somebody to
empty it out.
go down there to empty it out so that he can continue collecting the money.
yeah.
And from what I heard, it really sounded like he was having a hissy fit over it too.
Yeah.
I was upset. Yeah, and I guess what? I now have 2 machines. Okay,
And that's the definition
just in
of
case
a
one
Cadillac
gets
problem.
Just in case one gets full.
Exactly.
But plus your phone lights up every time something goes in there, right?
Well, these assholes are like, hey, the waitress is like, what's wrong? And he's like, oh, his money machine's full. And she's like, what? And then the other guy's like, I don't have a money machine. Do you have a money machine? And everyone's like, it's really funny to them. But to me, the business is closed. This shut me down.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't see the correlation between it being full and my inability to collect more money. So it's okay.
I got to say, that's not where I thought the story was going to go. I thought you had knocked over a money machine or dragged one out of a Circle K or
It's a problem.
you know, tried to set one on fire.
If your money machine gets full, you'll be upset.
Oh, I just want a money machine in my life. I would like to have that
It
option.
will bother you.
Yeah.
And they break and all kinds of shit happens to them, but they're nice to own.
That's a primo problem.
Whatever, man.
Well, here on Sober Shenanigans, we like to do what we call the sober celebrity quote of the day. And big in the news right now is Brad Pitt is on the cover of a bunch of magazines talking about getting sober. Back in 2016, after his divorce, he joined AA and got sober. And here was his quote that's recently been going around. He said, I just thought it was incredible. Men sharing their experiences, their aches, their missteps, their wants and foibles with a lot of humor mixed in. A very special experience that heightened honesty and vulnerability. I was on my knees and really open and looking and trying anything that anyone threw at me. I needed rebooting, needed to wake the fuck up, and it's meant the world to me and my life. Bam.
Wow.
Yeah, he's carrying a great message, man. I've been listening to a couple of his things, and I'm a huge fan of his work. You know, and I don't know what it's like for these guys. I'm sure that he walks out and pretty much whatever he wants is coming his way. You know what I mean? At least that's what I think, my perception.
I think that's pretty close to his life.
Yeah, I mean, you know, private this and private that, but you know, the humility that he has to endure and I think that him and Angelina were, you know, he destroyed a relationship. I think that was a true love. I think a guy like that can have 5 or 6 true loves in his life. You know what I mean? Like, and I think he destroyed something, and it meant something to him, and he had to hit the reboot button.
Yeah.
And I think he's, you know, living this great life now, and he's proud of it, and he should be.
Yeah.
You know.
And the guys with us, Tyler and Ryan, are living great lives too now.
For sure.
Is there anything you guys would like to express, or you want to say to someone trying to get sober, or any last messages or stories you want to bring up while you're sitting here?
I would like to bring up, I remember doing my 3rd step with my sponsor on Primo's back porch.
Oh, man.
Way back when. And one of the messages that Dennis brought up that resonated with me was you actually have to join AA. And, you know, I was always fearful of the unknown. You know, I didn't know what this life was going to be like when you get sober, because I'd spent everything leading up to it going the opposite way, just trying to numb my feelings, numb the pain away. And, you know, I was thinking that, you know, I wasn't going to be able to have any fun when you get sober. And it's just turned out to be the opposite. You know, the opportunities you have now being sober, clear-headed, you know, you're able to advance in your career. You know, you mend all the relationships in your family. It opens so many doors for you, and the people you surround yourself with in this program has just been incredible. You know, I always find it interesting when you pick up a medallion, they're like, how many and how'd you do it? And I'm always like, you know, I didn't do it. There's so many people that have helped me get to this point. It's such a group effort, all the phone calls and the, you know, people you hear share at meetings that help you get to this point. Just super thankful. And, you know, anybody that's scared to get sober out there, you're going to have to dream new dreams.
Nice. Tyler, what about you?
Yeah, and the crazy thing, something we didn't touch on was, you know, both of us, our families might have a little, I know my family has some alcoholism in its history.
Sure.
But, you know, both of our upbringings were pretty good, I would say. And just to point that out, you know, it doesn't matter how you're raised, I guess, or what your history is. It affects everybody, including Brad Pitt. So, anyways, final thought would be, you know, you have to become willing. You have to find the willingness and a higher power of your understanding. And, you know, it literally is one day at a time. You know, it's so easy to get spun out thinking ahead or future tripping or having FOMO about, oh, well, what about this? What about that? You know, you stay in the moment and work on, you know, being the best version of yourself in that moment, and then again and again moving forward one day at a time.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, if you're having a tough time quitting, whatever it is that you know you need to quit, you're not alone. There's apps and numbers and groups in your town, or you can call us if you want. Leave us a message, 727-294-4933. Hit us up on Facebook. Taking that first step into a room or a chat or a group with people just trying to get better just like you will be the best day of your life. Primo, what do you got for a final point on today's show?
Dude, these final points are getting tough. They're getting...
You'd think you'd prepare.
I don't...
They come every show.
Yeah, I know. Well, the final point is the example that you get to watch people set. And it starts with helping others, man. And then getting rid of that being unselfish and watching you two guys be an example for other guys and knowing that they're watching you and that you guys are owning it. You know what I mean? You own that and you answer your phone. I know you're working with other guys. I know you're doing the deal. I know you work the steps. That's the critical part. Like, you guys get to be an example of it. And then hopefully those guys do it and this trend keeps going and we churning the water up with good shit.
Absolutely. Well, Tyler and Ryan, thank you guys so much for being here. It's been great to meet you and sharing your story. You
Thanks
guys
for
did
having
excellent.
us.
Yep.
No
Thank
problem. Hey, listen, thanks for listening to Sober Shenanigans, real talk and real recovery. You know, worry, anxiety, and fear, it's all up in here. So just give yourself a break. You're enough and you're doing great. I'm Stoff and he's Primo. And remember, no drinks today.
We're all in the same boat, fellas.
But our shenanigans are cheeky and fun.
Yeah, I mean, his shenanigans are cruel and tragic.
Which makes them not shenanigans at all, really. Evil shenanigans.
I swear to God, I'll pistol whip the next guy that says shenanigans.
Shenanigans!